Y'all won't believe what Digger did last night. Digger, we might have to rename him Houdini, because he pushed his way on up out of that crack right there and right on into the pond. What you doing, buddy? Did you hurt yourself? He wanted to be in the pond some kind of bad, so there he is, in the pond. We'll move him in and out of there, as need be, but he can get up on that rock there and sun himself. And right now it looks like he's just eating algae and stuff off the rocks. Yeah. Plenty of algae and stuff in there for him to munch on. And that's where I read up on box turtles, and when they're that young, they love to be near water. That's where they want to be. In the pond is where they stay most of the time. Creek, waterway, that's where they want to be. It's where the soil is nice and loose, and they can dig into the edges of the creek and bury themselves. That's where they want to go, so that's where he's going to be. And yesterday we went around and added all the sand and silt clay that we had in our bucket here. We had been storing a bunch of sand and silt in here, and we distributed it all over the bed. So basically what we did was we kind of acted like a heavy flush coming down through here. So basically picture coming down from the mountains, a flood, and that flood brings in all that sand and sediment and all that stuff, rushes it down through the system, and it distributes it all across the edges of the water. And yeah, that's kind of my idea here. You can see that the sand and silt clay that we've distributed, it's the same stuff that's in the creek. We just extend it over. You can see how wet it's gotten. It wicks water all the way up. It'll keep wicking it. It's all the way up. You can see the difference in color. And it'll just keep wicking that water. Look how far up it's wicked that water. From over there, it's wicked all the way up. And it'll keep all the way up in here moist. It'll stay moist. And as we water, now it hasn't gotten all the way up here yet, but all we got to do really is this is just adding that organic matter to the soil. And what's going to happen is that over the next month, 2 months, 3 months, the worms, all the critters will just break down this sand, silt, and clay right into that soil layer, that top 2-3 inches of soil layer that where we want it, and turn that into food. We've already seen what happens over here when the critters and the worms and the millipedes turn all that stuff into black gold. So all I've done is extend that sand and silt over top of my soil layer, over top of that IMO4. And we did that in the center. We did that all along the edges. And this morning when I walked in, the amount of water that was gone out of the pond that had been wicked up by all this sand and silt that we had put in, we had to put about 10 gallons of water in the pond this morning. So that's how much water is being wicked up. So that's why we can't have so much wicking up all the time. We don't want it wicking up a whole lot of water, because it's too much. We'll start to bring in too much water. But now, like when I first did it all along the edges of the creek, the only spots that I had it missing was right there on the edge, because I didn't have a whole lot of soil over there to absorb a lot of that water. A lot of that water was running over the lip, running down and over into the hole. We've solved that problem now that the roots, we've gotten couple of runs in, so that means we've got a lot of mass, a lot of more root density in the soil. That soil is holding and absorbing water a whole lot better now than what it was. You can see up underneath the tree here we don't have hardly any algae growing. But then as we get up from underneath the elephant ear and where that light hits is where we start to get that algae bloom. So all we do is really run our hand through here, make sure that all this stuff gets sent through. You can see a lot of this stuff, just we put it over here on the top. This way the worms and everything can still run through it. And the reason I don't pull this out, because if I pull this out and put it onto the soil, all my life, all the snails and everything that's in that I just pulled up will die. Not that it's not a good food source for the soil, but I want it in the water. We want the roots to come in here and suck the nutrients out of it. We want this sand and silt here to be wicking that nutrient up into there. The grasses here will all start to, well, they're utilizing that poo, that fish poo, that nitrate that's being built up in the creek. And that's what's going to be cleaning our water. All this grass that's growing all through here, we just got to make sure that the algae doesn't take over. And as long as this stuff is standing up and growing and extending itself, I can see it growing. But if I wasn't going in here and pulling out some of this algae that's building up, we would start to lose a lot of it. This stuff would choke it out, not allow the water to flow through. All that sediment would build up and it would overload the system. Basically it would overload that area, and then that area would end up having a death spiral where the grasses would turn yellow and everything would start to die off because the algae is holding in too much nitrate. The nitrate can't flow like it's supposed to and be consumed by the biology as it flows. And it's really, like I said, the basics of this is just really just keeping everything flowing. Like things like to build up. Picture your veins in your system, like your veins. If they clog up, no good. We want our arteries and our veins to be clean. We want them to be flowing. As plaque and stuff build up inside of them, it clogs them up, restrains the flow. Bad things happen. We need to maintain that flow constantly. Now, of course, the edges of the creek are a little different because we have all this grass growing. We have the algae build up a little bit. As long as we keep that center, that main flow going, as long as it's pulling and not constricted in the center, we're good to go. And sometimes it's just as simple as me running my water wand through there, my water hose, and just making it like a rainfall coming through here and acting like it's like a big flood. Like bring the water hose in here and just whoosh, and blast it on down, blast the pond. All that sediment and stuff will wash into the pond and then be sucked back around, and it will be consistently flowing through. No filter. I don't have to change. I haven't changed the filter. We have done 3 water changes, in which I think we're coming up on another. We should do another 10 gallons probably here, but I haven't had to because this morning I came in and had to add 10 gallons. So why do a water change? That was my water change. The sand and the silt and this are wicking up all that water out of the pond, and that's why we had to add to it. We don't have any water in our hole here, so that tells us that's just dirt down there. I gotta get the vacuum cleaner. That's just dirt. She's dry as a bone down at the bottom. You've got a isopod down there, a roly-poly. We've also got the most of the concrete on the wall down here covering up. We still have, some touch-up to do. But now that all this is dry, now we have a hard surface. So now we can come back and hit the sidewalls once again. And then once it dries a little bit, we just run our hand through there and smooth it out. Make it nice and smooth. And then we'll extend that concrete onto the floor. We're going to do the whole floor basically, just a nice little layer of concrete on the floor, and then we're going to pond shield the whole floor and up the sides about 4, 5, 6 inches. That'll give us our reservoir. Then we're going to bring in our pea gravel, and then we're going to bring in our sand, silt, and clay layer, about 4 to 6 inches maybe of sand, silt, and clay. Same stuff we just put on top over here. Clean sand, silt, and clay, and then we put our soil on top of that. So the sand, silt, clay, organic matter, that barrier there, that thick barrier, we're gonna add a little. Sorry, I forgot. We're gonna add a little bit of red clay to the top of that, and that's gonna separate. That red clay is then gonna separate from the sand, silt, and clay, and then soil on top of the red clay. Not much of a red clay layer, just a little. We don't want a hard pan to where it holds water. We want the water to go down through there and then kind of stop on that red clay and then seep through the red clay down to the sand silt, down to our reservoir. The roots from plants will come down. They will tap in. They will bust through the clay layer, opening up water channels. All the water, the excess water, that goes through our soil, will breach through the clay, and then that sand, silt, and clay will hold it. It will basically wick it. So the sand, silt, and clay has more wicking action than the soil. So the sand, silt, and clay layer, the big thick layer you have down underneath there, is going to hold that excess water. But it'll also pull it out of the soil. If you understand what I'm saying, we want to separate. There's a barrier there where we want to keep water from sitting in our soil. Keep that water from, or keep our soil from going hydrophobic or anaerobic, so to speak. Not hydrophobic, but anaerobic. And that's when the soil just gets too moist, too wet, and it starts to get funky. Kind of like the way when we brought up the sand, silt, and clay from the reservoir, it smells like a swamp, which is what we don't want. We want to clean that first, but then once we get that soil on top, the roots wick that water up out of that sand, silt, and clay, and on from there. That's the best way I can explain it, really. It's simple but complicated. I mean, when I think about it, I'm looking at layers. When I stick a shovel down in the ground, I'm not putting a shovel into peat moss. I'm not putting a shovel into sphagnum moss or cocoa. There's none of that. It's all broken down organic matter. It's sand, silt, clays, organic matter. That is soil. When we start adding all these, these other nutrients to it, like kelp, and we start bringing in the seaweed, which is kelp, we start bringing in the crab meals, all these ocean aquatic minerals, so to speak. This is when we get into the good soil, the super soils, which is what we're buying when we go to a store. So that's what we did originally here. Now that we've got that soil, we're just going to build on top of it. So I'm using the sand, silt, and clays from the reservoir as my nutrient source. I'm hoping that this sand, silt, and clay has all the nutrients in it that my plants need, like, not like kelp, but it's still calcium, it's still nitrogen, it's still all these elements and minerals that we need to grow the plant. But I don't have to go to the store and buy anything. It's really about using, that's natural farming in a nutshell, using what we have on our property to grow the best product we can, the best food we can. That's what it's all about. If something went wrong, like COVID, where they shut everything down, can we grow food? Can we take care of ourselves? Can we still grow our medicine? That's the big question. Can you do it without a bottle? Can you do it without going to the store? And that was my mission. I wanted to, granted, this is indoors. We need electricity, we need lights, but everything I'm doing in here is just simply replicating what can be done outside. That's the basic of it. I mean, all I did was bring it indoors. So if I can do it indoors, we can do it anywhere. If we had sun, we had the natural element, oh, it's over. You set something up like this outside, you're good to go forever. You'll never have to touch it. You'll never have to do anything other than maintain and steward it. It's all about just stewarding what you've created. Mother Nature does it. She stewards everything. I mean, I hear people, oh, it's not natural, it's not an true ecosystem. Well, I mean, it's as close as we're going to get to creating something like nature outdoors. You've got to have water flow. You've got to have a water source, which is the pond. Of course, we have the pump, but outdoors there are ways we can get around that, because we can actually create a natural pump. There are many different ways of doing that. Excuse me. But in here, there's just we can't dig through the floor. It's concrete. There's elevation issues. We couldn't go so high because we run out of ceiling space. So we can only go so high. So when I designed this in my head, I was taking into account that we got to take into account everything: the height of the room, how much room we have, how many lights we're going to need, how many lights we're going to cover the space that we needed. So we had 3 of these Grand Masters, which are really big lights. So this whole thing here, minus the new addition, was 12 feet long by 9.5 feet wide. So that'll give you an idea. It's about 200 gallons of water. That includes the creek. So there's probably 150 in the pond, 50 in the creek. The creek is not as deep. Well, it's deeper than you think. Put it this way: if you stick your finger down in there, it'll go, in some places it'll go all the way up to about here. In other places it only goes up to about an inch. In other places it's 2, maybe close to 3 inches deep, like over there. So we wanted that slope to come down. We wanted a speed slope through here. It speeds up through there and then slows up in here, spins around, does this little, that's where we got all the grass growing, obviously, right in that corner. That's where a lot of that nitrate, a lot of that poo is sitting. It'll come rushing down through here and sit in this area along the edges of the creek, and that's where the grasses come in, and those grass roots will start to devour that poo and use it as food, and that's what we want. So we'll be taking down, this is the last black mojito, and these nugs are nice and tight, super terpy. I mean, they're ready to go. Definitely just coming into their last few days. We're still getting the white pistil though. Look at that white pistil coming out. That's telling me she's growing. So we might have another day or two on that one. And then we've got the little Trinity here, which is still kicking. Still got maybe another couple of days. Still got some white pistils coming out, so she's still, this one is just sticky. Kind of got that sweet that sweet grape. I want to say purple, but it's just got a funky, grapey, all over the place type of funk going on. Yeah, very nice. We've got our elephant ears that are getting much bigger, but we're still getting these spots on them. I'm not sure why. It's probably some fungal in the soil. We've been using some lactic acid bacteria to try and combat the fungal disease. We'll see how it does. The EM1 and the lactic acid bacteria that we make, just the rice water, milk, rice wash water. So we wash the rice and then we let it sit in a jar for a couple of days. Then we pour milk into that jar and then we let that set for a day or two, and then it curds up. And then the liquid underneath that curd is your lactic acid bacteria. You bring that in here and put it in the pond or in the creek, and that cleans. Lactic acid bacteria is just great bacteria to clean organic matter. It really eats it up. Very, very aggressive bacteria that likes to eat organic matter. And that's how we like to keep that's how we keep from having to have a filter. And we've been 6 months, going into 7 months now without a filter in the water. And we're just, like I said, it's going to take some time to get this grass and everything growing, get the roots growing into the creek. But once, hopefully, all that grass spreads and we get a good root mass in that creek system, we won't need a filter. We can just do a water change here and there. Look at Digger swimming over there. Tell me he can't swim. He's a pro at swimming. He can even eat while swimming. I haven't seen Cooter or Scooter. Let's see. I see Digger in there. We did the nice rinse through the creek earlier, and that's why it's so dirty in here. All that sediment from the creek has come into the pond and hasn't filtered back around yet. Let's see if we got all these loose rocks in here. Yeah, there's Cooter or Scooter, one of them. Probably over there. I just can't get over there right now. I got all these loose rocks hanging out and I don't want to move them, and I'm stepping on rocks over here. So we'll just leave them alone. We'll throw some food in there. I know they're in there. They're probably hiding from Digger. Kind of confused as to what Digger is. Alright, that's today's walk around. I appreciate everybody hanging out, and we'll see you tomorrow.